Hey everybody, Johnny B. Good here once again. I just got a question from Barbara Adler. What made you decide to become a truck driver? And what would be your second choice of work if trucking wasn't your life? Well, Barbara, before I answer that question, I think it's time that I tell you a little bit about myself. I've said this in my video early in my video when I started this, but I realized that I have so many videos in my channel now. It's been ages ago, I guess, as far as that's concerned. So my name is John, as you guys could know. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I grew up in a small island of Camiguin Island. It's spelled C-A-M-I-G-U-I-N, Camiguin Island, Philippines. My dad, Jack, was born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And he belonged to a really prominent, wealthy family in Wisconsin. But my dad was kind of an oddball. When, you know, they had those real rich, high-class society family. And, you know, just like you see in the movies, they love parties and they love those high-pollutant society kind of a thing. But my dad would rather go out in the garage and fix engines and take them apart and figure them out, what makes them work. And while everybody in the family would all be coat and tie, and my dad would be out in the garage like a grease monkey. He was just not into that high-pollutant society kind of thing. So anyway, when my dad was old enough, he became a sailor for the shipping lanes in the Great Lakes of Michigan, Huron, Superior, and all that stuff. Boy, did he love sailing. But when he was old enough, maybe at the age of 21, he became a sailor on the high seas, a merchant marine, not a navy, but just a regular sailor, you know, for the shipping containers and coals and whatever, you know, freight sailor, I guess. So he did that for a number of years and sailed around the world a few times. When growing up as a little boy, he used to tell me all the ports and all the stories of all the places that he's gone and experiences. But anyway, back a little bit. When his ship landed in the Philippines at Del Monte, he jumped off ship. And what that is when sailors jumped off ship, what they will do is they literally will get off that port, wherever the port, you know, wherever the ship, wherever the port their ship is docked on, they'll jump off and either live there, go home, or whatever. And that's what my dad did. He jumped off, and he lived in the Philippines for about 45 years. Right away right away after jumping off ship, Now this is back in the early days, and people in the Philippines were different, I guess. They were, I don't know, different times. And but anyway, my dad had a rough time adjusting to the Philippines at first. He didn't speak the language. Some people were unkind to him. They took advantage of him. And one day, my mom, before she met my dad, saw an American guy being mistreated and being laughed at or whatever, making fun of. And for some reason, my mom at that time was a very young woman, and she's one of those really energetic, activist, justice for mankind. But all said and done, my mom got off the bus and came to my dad's rescue and started shouting at people, and so my mom became the knight in shining armor for my dad, and my mom took him home. So there goes a love story for you. So anyway, my mom took him home, and at that time my mom was newly educated at a university and was a teacher. And at that time, education back in the Philippines was not all that common, and few selective people were educated. And so all said and done, that's how it started. But back to the question of what made me become a truck driver. Well, growing up in the Philippines back in I was born in 68, and I think it was somewhere back in 1979, the BJ and the Bear TV show came on, I guess. Now, growing up in a very small island, we did not have running water, no electricity, but our house did, because my dad was pretty modern, being American and being a mechanic and an engineer by heart, not by education. My dad was a pure MacGyver. And so growing up in a small village in the Philippines, I grew up in both worlds, being modern and also being a village boy, because my friends were there and all that. So I got to live in both worlds. And I guess that's where it started for me, BJ and the Bear. So fast forward, there's a lot of things that happened before that and all that, but fast forward back up in 1990, I migrated here in the United States. I work at cheese factories and odds and ends, I think I was 23 years old back then. And I decided warehouse work was not for me. So I went to truck driving school in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. There's a truck driving school over there called Diesel Truck Driving School. I had a hard time starting out as a truck driver. I was not really all that good at it when I started. It took me a while to get to it, but before I became a truck driver, I was a hellraiser, motorcycle, street racer. I was nuts on a motorcycle back in the Philippines, and I knew the road. I knew how to drive, although I did not know how to drive properly and legally because in the Philippines, you know, there's no such thing as at that time. I suppose it's different now, but at the time, in my time, you know, there were no speed limits back in the Philippines at my time, and driver's license was optional. I mean, as long as you had a couple bucks in your wallet, you know, all that stuff. But so I loved driving on the road, although I never really drove anything substantial back home. But as a motorcyclist and all that, I loved the road, and I used to go up in mountains and way out in the middle of nowhere just to, you know, ride around by myself. And so anyway, I went to truck driving school in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, and the first company I drove for was CRST out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. What would be my second choice as work, if not truck driving? Probably a pilot. I have an immense love for aircraft, of anything that flies. Not necessarily commercial airliner. Maybe another freight, you know, freight pilot like FedEx and UPS, or even smaller planes, you know. In fact, a bush pilot would be pretty good too. I like interacting with people. I like telling stories to people and teaching them, and so a bush pilot, or, you know, where you can actually have a one-on-one conversation with a passenger or whatnot. Yeah, that would be great. That would be nice. That would be my second choice, or if not, be my first choice. But I screwed up. I really screwed up, because, you know, in life there are people who wants to go to school but they can't, you know, kids that want to go to school but they can't afford it. And there are people that can afford the school, don't want to go to school. Isn't that the way it works? Most people that can afford to go to school don't want to go to school. Well, I was that. I could have gone to any kind of college that I wanted. My dad could have afforded to send me there, but then again, I am not college material. But even then, I could have made a better choice, as far as, you know, I could have pursued my love of aircraft, gone to pilot school, or, you know, aircraft school and all that stuff. But I don't know. I was young, I was stupid, and I was undisciplined, and I was stupid. What can I say? Made a lot of wrong choices, I guess. So that's how trucking became with me. And also bear in mind for you guys out there, the new future truckers, like one of you future rig driver, I think it is, future trucker rig. Sorry, I can't remember your well, I can find out, hold on. I got you here in my inbox, and but while I'm waiting for that, most truckers, when they are new at trucking, especially young guys like I was, the first year of trucking is going to be really tough. A lot of adjustments. In fact, I myself for the first year cried a few times, because the job itself is not all that difficult. It doesn't take a genius to drive this job, to do this job. Future big rig driver, there you go. The job itself is not that difficult, but the adjustment of being on the road is different. Different hours. For the most part, you never see the same people twice in months. You know, you go to the truck stop and chances are you'll never see those people again, except for the people that work in truck stop. And once in a long while, I'll go to California or Washington or Arizona or Maine or Colorado, and I'll go to a truck stop, and I'll end up saying, "Hey driver, didn't I see you in Florida about a month ago?" So there are instances where we truck drivers, you know, bump into each other, and it's kind of like, wow, one small world or a big living room, you know. It's so the point is, the first year it's a very hard and difficult adjustment, and I must warn you that the first year of trucking, especially the first months, you ain't gonna make money out here. The way that works is you go to truck driving school, you graduate, you apply for a job, for for example CRST, like that guy yesterday that had a hard time backing, and did you know that he only gets paid what, $300-400 a week? He doesn't get paid by the mile. Oh no. And he's still considered a student driver, because he drives with a trainer. He's the trainee, and so he just gets paid salary $300 to $400 a week, regardless of how many miles they drove. Now, it depends on two things. It depends on your skill performance, how fast you adapt, how fast you learn. Then your trainer will release you from being a student to a co-driver status. There are even some of these trainers that if they come across a student driver that does really good, instead of graduating that student driver to a co-driver status, he might just decide to keep you longer because you drive properly, and between you and him can drive 6,000 miles, and guess what? That 6,000 miles all that 6,000 miles, the driver, the lead driver gets to keep all that. He might get paid, you know, he might get paid 35 cents a mile. Multiply that by 6,000 miles, he gets to keep all that revenue. So it's not an incentive for him to let you go, because you're making all that money for him, right? I mean, sure, he could get another student driver in his truck, but that guy may not drive as well as you do. So he might just decide to keep you. And sometimes, if you're so bad at it, if you have a really bad attitude and I don't know, for some reason your personality does not get along with his, or you stink, or whatever your problem is, he might just let you go, get you off his hair. So, and back to the point is, once he releases you, if he thinks he's confident enough to let you go, then he will graduate you to a co-driver status. The company will pair you up with another driver that just newly graduated from student driver to a co-driver. So then what happens then is, both of you young greenhorn will drive in the truck equal as a co-driver status. And what happens then is the company will drive you guys to the max, because the company will only pay the truck, what is it, 35 cents a mile, and 35 cents a mile, you both split that right in the middle. In my day, I was only paid 15 cents a mile after we both split it. But I tell you what, we drove from California all the way to New York, or all the way to Marlboro, Mass, twice a week, or even more than that. And there's a lot of money to be made. It takes a lot of work, and it's also a very difficult adjustment, that trying to sleep in a truck while the truck is rocking and rolling and braking. And so, all right, I think this video is a little bit long. I'll cut it and do another segment a little bit later. Peace.